All right, people, here is the latest news on the Dillian Whyte WBC situation. And it is very much as I'd previously described, but we're going to hear from Eddie Hearn right now. I'm going to quote him. He says, "We're going to appeal that." And that is the WBC's decision to make Dominic Breazeale the mandatory challenger. He says, "We're going to appeal that. Mauricio Sulaiman said he would talk about it this week and maybe post a resolution. If Joshua doesn't fight Wilder, then Wilder will fight Breazeale. If Wilder fights Breazeale, he doesn't need to be the mandatory. But Wilder's team will want Breazeale to be the mandatory because there isn't much credibility in the fight. Let that fight be a voluntary. Then the winner of Whyte Ortiz is the mandatory. We don't mind fighting Ortiz, but it has to be for the mandatory, not be the second mandatory behind the guy who has never fought an eliminator and who is behind Whyte in the rankings. It's outrageous." And Hearn goes on to talk about Kubrat Pulev. He says it's a good fight. Dillian can become IBF mandatory, and that's a good place for him to be. Sauerland has Pulev, and we're in extensive dialogue to make the fight. I don't think me and Kala have ever been to a purse bid. Usually we make a deal. Different fights have different characteristics to the deal. So, yeah, those are the latest words from Eddie Hearn on the Dillian Whyte situation. As I mentioned previously, Whyte and Hearn have got no issue fighting Ortiz. The only issue they have is with Breazeale being mandatory. So, yeah, go ahead and allow Wilder to face Breazeale as a voluntary. This is what Hearn and Whyte are saying. Let Wilder fight Breazeale as a voluntary. We're cool with that. As long as the winner of Whyte versus Ortiz, a fight they're happy to take, becomes the mandatory and would therefore get their shot at Wilder later on this year, as long as there's no unification with Joshua. If there is unification with Joshua, then they would get their shot in the early part of 2019 at the winner of Joshua Wilder. So, yeah, that's the situation, just to give you a quick update. One interesting thing here, though, is where they said if Joshua doesn't fight Wilder, then Wilder will fight Breazeale. So, you know, I mean, Eddie Hearn previously had said that Wilder's fighting Breazeale next regardless. But perhaps there's a spanner in the works here. Perhaps Hearn is trying to block the Breazeale fight in order to make the Joshua Wilder fight happen. I mean, if you remember, prior to Golovkin facing Canelo Alvarez, Canelo's team, Golden Boy, publicly blocked Golovkin from taking on Billy Joe Saunders. They said, no, no, no. If you take on Billy Joe Saunders or you take on anybody prior to facing Canelo, then the fight with Canelo is off. Has Eddie Hearn, or is Eddie Hearn attempting to do something like that with Dominic Breazeale with regards to Wilder? If so, why? Is it because he wants Dillian Whyte to maybe face Dominic Breazeale in a final eliminator rather than Ortiz? Is that why he's trying to take Breazeale off Deontay Wilder's menu? Is it because he wants to try and keep Deontay Wilder out of the ring and not active for as long as possible before facing Joshua? Because Joshua fought a few weeks ago against Parker. So if him and Wilder fight and, you know, Wilder has fought Dominic Breazeale in the meantime, let's say in July, that might favor Deontay Wilder as long as he comes out the Breazeale fight with a victory and with no injuries. That might favor him because he might have more ring sharpness. So is this Eddie Hearn trying to throw a spanner in the works and, as I say, prevent Wilder from facing Breazeale next, either in a mandatory or voluntary, because he wants to keep Wilder out the ring, you know, and even up the playing field so he's no sharper than Joshua is? Or is it more to do with the Whyte situation, where he wants to take Breazeale off the table so Whyte is closer to his WBC mandatory shot? Let me know what you think in the comment section below about the whole situation and everything I've discussed in this video. All right? It's happening. I'm out.